right, so the topic today is venture roadmaps, and really what we want to do is cover how you get from an idea to a venture capital firm. And of course, we can't give you all the steps, right? But I'm going to give you a big enough high level and enough tactical advice that you can get started with some confidence. The first thing you probably want to think about is, how do you get to the next slide? Success. No, is this a good time to start a fund? And there's a lot of debate in the media and on Twitter and all this stuff. Okay, let me help you. VC Lab started 60%, maybe 61%, over 60% of all new venture capital firms in 2022 worldwide. Okay, so if someone's like, VC's in trouble, right? Well, maybe they know and maybe they don't know, right? But I would guess that we know, right? Because over 60% of the firms launched in 2022 were accelerated by VC Lab in every continent, in many places that there weren't VC firms before. So we kind of see everything. So I would say that we have a pretty good sense of what's going on. And first thing I'm going to say is, most of the stuff you read is not accurate. It's BS. Now, it's self-promoting BS. A lot of times it's great to naysay stuff. Sometimes, it's because they have a very small base of experience. They spoke to 50 LPs, okay? Well, guess what? Our system that helps managers run their funds has over 55,000 LPs, okay? So it's not 50 LPs, it's 55,000 LPs. So the first thing I'm going to say is, it's a great time to start. It's a great time to invest. We're not seeing a slowdown in new managers in early stage. So again, a lot of the stuff you're seeing is wrong. And on top of that, venture capital is counter-cyclical. So when it's tough times in the market, it's good times in venture. And if you guys have questions on that, pop them in the Q&A and I'll make sure to discuss them. Okay, so now is a good time to fundraise and close. I would argue, it's definitely a little harder, because when people have lost a lot of money, they're not like, oh, how do I spend money? They tend to be more fiscally conservative. But right now, for example, a lot of our funds have double-digit net IRR, which is vastly better than we're seeing in other asset classes, okay? And why do we care? Well, VC Lab's mission is to transform venture capital into a force for good in the world. And right now, it's really not a force for good. It's geographically concentrated. A lot of times it's misogynistic. It has a lot of problems. And we're going to fix every one of those problems and help it to fund great things, because we believe that if you take disrupting startups and you give them smart capital, we can change the world for the better. And what does that mean? Well, the UN set sustainable development goals for 2030. Well, we want to have regenerative goals where we reverse climate change, where we increase global biodiversity. And this whole transformation is powered by renewables. And we believe that venture capital will do that. Okay, so that's our why. Now, let's talk about how you can start a firm. So there's 5 big steps to starting a VC firm. And it's not going to be easy. Okay, this is not like, oh, what are you going to do? I'm going to mow the lawn and start a VC firm, said no one ever. Right? This is a hard endeavor. It's not impossible, right? It's definitely doable, and I'm going to tell you how to do it right now. So at the core of what you're going to do is you're going to draft a thesis, and I'm going to show you what a thesis looks like and how to do it. Okay. Now, you may get to a good thesis, but you may not have a strong track record. So you also need a track record. If you don't have the strong track record now, I'm going to show you how to build that track record right now. Once you have a thesis and a track record, you're going to need materials like a deck, things like that. I want to note that fundraising for venture is not like fundraising for a startup. There's something called general solicitation, and Mike, maybe you could put the general solicitation link in the chat. You can't go out there and scream from the top of a mountain, I'm raising a fund, I'm raising a fund. You can't do that, okay? There are rules. Unfortunately, the rules are very cumbersome in a lot of places, so you just need to know the rules and be careful. There are ways to do it. But you are going to have to pitch a lot of people and following these general solicitation rules, potentially hundreds of people. And then once you've pitched a lot of people and you're getting interest, only then you begin to start the entities and start a closing process. This is a big mistake. A lot of people are like, I want to start a venture capital firm. Let me set the firm up first. You set the firm up last, okay? Unlike a startup, you set the company up first in a startup, and then you start building because you collect the intellectual property in that entity. That's not what you do in venture. You get all of the interest first, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and then you set the entities up second, okay? All right, so let's begin at the beginning with the thesis. All righty, nothing like a good thesis to get Tuesday morning rolling off right, or in some cases afternoon or evening. Okay, so we've created a template for you to create a thesis in one sentence. And here's the thing about that. Now my monitor's flickering on and off, everybody. I don't exactly, maybe the cord is loose. Let me jigger it a little bit here. All right. So if you can't say your thesis in one sentence, and Mike, you know, feel free, raise your finger if you want to interrupt me on something, and hold it up because my monitor's going on and off. But if you can't say your thesis in one sentence, you can't say it in a paragraph, you can't turn it into a deck, you can't have a 30-minute meeting about it, and you can't close, okay? Because in my experience in this, which is vast, Mike and I together have helped thousands of people with their thesis and closed hundreds of funds, okay, with the people we've helped. It must be simple, okay? And so the reason we put this template together, it has everything you need. Okay, so your name of the fund, and if you don't know your name right now, use any name, right? Use like a color, like Orange Ventures or Blue Ventures, whatever. Is launching. Now you need the size of your fund. Now I want to talk about size for 1 second right here. If you're a new manager, and I would even say outside the US, it might be 2 to 5 million, especially in developing nations. You don't want to have a fund over $15 million, okay? Let me repeat that. You don't want to have a fund over $15 million. It's just going to be hard for you to raise. Now, let's say you set the target for 15 and you have all these people come in and they want to give you 20. Great, take 20, but don't set your target at something that's hard to achieve. Your goal on fund 1 is to get to fund 2. The larger the fund 1 number is, the longer it will take you to get to fund 2. So you are working against your goal, okay? The goal of everyone in fund 1 is to get to fund 2. So do everything in your power to reduce the barriers to fund 2. Fund size is the easiest of those things, okay? So you're going to focus on a single stage, pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, etc. You might be doing a venture studio or even an angel fund, but you pick one stage. Now, that doesn't mean you don't invest in other stage. This is the thesis defines 70+% of your activity, not 100%. So you may want to invest in a later stage 10% of the time, and you'd be a seed fund and do occasional Series A or occasional pre-seed. Then you need to tell the limited partners in your thesis, and the thesis is designed for limited partners. It's not going to be, maybe you print it on your wall in the office, but it's really designed for limited partners primarily. where you're located. So what country or what city are you in? And where are you going to fund things? And this is super important. People are like, everywhere in the world. No. Limited partners pay taxes. It's okay. Venture funds are pass-through entities. And so if you invest in a Mongolian company and you're in Europe, then your limited partners, when there's a return, are going to have to deal with Mongolian taxes and cross-border issues. And so while it sounds great, I'm going to invest all around the world, limited partners are going to be like, I don't want my money in Mongolia because I don't know what the tax regime in Mongolia is. I don't know how the returns are going to be calculated in Mongolia. So you really need to pick an area, preferably a country or a region, a small set of countries where your limited partners will be comfortable deploying capital through you. Because again, it's a pass-through entity. Next, you want to pick a sector that you're focused on or an industry, not 10 industries, 50 industries, a sector or industry. It can be broad, but LPs prefer narrow. And then you're going to talk about what your secret sauce is. And I'll talk about secret sauce separately. So we'll come back to that. So look, there's research on this. So back to the single stage, they surveyed all these LPs in big funds, and 29% said they like multi-stage funds, and 71% prefer one stage. Okay, so this was a big survey of a lot of LPs, and I can tell you that a lot of the 29% are like big endowments and things like that aren't going to invest in your firm anyway, right? And they're like, sure, we're okay with multidisciplinary, right? So if you're going out there and you're a new manager, which means you have a lot of wind against you, so it's not wind in your sails, it's like going into the headwinds, then you want to make it easier. So go after the 71% of LPs that want a single stage. And similarly, on sectors and industries, people are like, I want to focus on a lot of sectors. Okay. 72% of LPs want you to focus on a single sector. Okay. So again, don't go into the headwinds here as a new manager. Go with the flow. All right. And data backs this up. Now, Mike, do you want to add anything on Thesis? Because I'm sure you.
This is one of the hardest things to do for most people in our program, and is getting this right. But when somebody gets this right, it makes everything so much easier, because you align everything perfectly. You have like the perfect thesis that matches your perfect background. LPs also resonate with that thesis as well. So it makes conversion so much faster and better, right? And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to waste your time with people that are not going to, invest in your thesis, right? Or there's just not. So that helps you target the right LPs. It helps them, make sure that you're going to over deliver because of your background and so on. So it's very critical that you just get this right.
Hi, just back to the chat. Do not discuss your thesis in the chat, please. That could be construed as general solicitation. So talk about what you like, your children, your life, your background, your angel investing track record, but not your fund thesis. Okay.
Also, I see a bunch of questions coming in already in the Q&A. Great. Make sure you upvote the ones that you like as well. But we're not really monitoring the chat for questions. They're all going to be in the Q&A.
Okay, let's talk about track record. I'll move a little faster now. Thesis is, in fact, the most important thing you can spend your time on. And let me tell you how you know if you have a good thesis, by the way. You shouldn't pitch real LPs with your thesis, but you should pitch people you know with your thesis, right? And hopefully rich people that you know. When you get more than 1 in 5 people that you pitch, just tell your thesis to, interested in investing, so preferably 2 or 3 out of 5, then your thesis is good. if you tell your thesis to someone and then you tell it to 5 people and nobody invests, or just one person is interested in investing, then it's not good and you need to work on it quite a bit. So track record is a tricky one. A lot of people that apply to VC Lab have a track record, all right? So they've invested in companies before, they've done deals, they've done a variety of things that, wow, my monitor is totally flickering right now. Okay, and I'm jinxing it because I said it and it goes haywire here. So they're coming in with a track record, and usually you measure the track record with TVPI, which is basically your multiple, or you measure it with IRR. Mike, I have no monitor. Give me 1 sec here.
Okay, well, your monitor is still up, so I can talk over if you don't mind.
Yeah, do you want it? So okay, it's back. Hi. So that's if you have a track record, you can do IRR, you can do TVPI, you can talk about the deals you've invested in before, you can talk about how those deals have performed, etc. If you don't have that, right, what you want to do is build a track record now, okay? And there are really a lot of ways to build a track record right now. You can make an investment right now, right? You can start investing literally right now. So you take your thesis, and the thesis says you're going to work on investing in these type of companies. So you just start investing in those type of companies. Now, if you can't invest a lot of money, that's fine. Invest what you can. Start the track record right away once you have your thesis. Some people don't have the money to do that, okay, at all, no money, which is okay as well. Then what you can do is start helping companies in the space where you need to build a track record, and then you use that as your track record. So you can say, look, I'm going after biotech companies. I've worked in biotech a long time, and I've helped 5 biotech companies go from seed to Series A with a cumulative 6.3x markup. Okay, that's a pretty good track record. You can start that right now, right? You don't need to wait. And then last but not least, you can actually accumulate deals that you're going to do once the fund is closed. Now, for most of you starting right now, your fund won't close for at least 6 months, maybe 8 months. But you can start building relationships with companies, helping them raise early, or founders, and helping them raise some early rounds, and then be in the pole position to invest when they're ready in a few months' time. I seem to have fixed the monitor, Mike, so I'm going to go on here. Thesis aligned deals with markups get limited partners excited, okay? So if you can take a deal that you've already done and that deal is marked up, the norm is you can transfer that deal into the fund at cost and give the markups to your limited partners. I've invested in several funds where I put money into the fund and I'm automatically marked up. I automatically have returns because the managers took previous portfolio companies and put them in the fund, and they got seriously marked up, and those managers passed the markups to their limited partners. And so that makes investing in the fund very easy. And you want to have all the wind in your sails when you're pitching LPs. So doing a deal warehouse with your previous investments is a great way to achieve that. Mike, do you want to add anything on track record, or I'll move on?
Let's move on.
Okay, so you need to create number 3. So you get your thesis, you get your track record. Now you need clear materials. I'll tell you what the materials are. You need a strong fund presentation. You need usually a 1 or 2 page written fund overview. You're going to need a model of how your fund is going to work. And there are a number of models you can buy online, including from one of our mentors and avid team members, at least in, we call it Centers of Excellence, Taylor Davidson. And maybe you could provide a link to Taylor's model, Mike. And then you're going to need a data room, a place where this and other materials, maybe decks of warehoused investments, et cetera, are located. Okay, that's it. That's what you need. I'm going to focus quickly on the fund presentation. So there's a bunch of needed fund presentations are not that long. Okay, maybe 20 pages. They can get a little longer than that, but for new managers, you don't have much to talk about, right? So title, thesis, team, what your value add is, and it's the value add to help the portfolio companies, what your track record is, what you've done before, how you've helped companies in the past. You want to talk preferably about your deal warehouse, whether you've done deals before and you're moving them in, or you're planning to do deals. You want to talk how you're allocating the capital, the returns that you expect per deal, and then the overall expected liquidity of the fund. Let me just double click on the liquidity for a moment. Most managers should project between 2 and 10x on a fund. Does that mean that the funds you could do a lot better than that, right? So, but if you put a 25x in your deck, no limited partner will take you seriously. Lots of new managers get 25x, even 50x. I think the record is by lowercase capital at 200 and almost 300, 250 something x, right? But I'm sure that Chris Sacca did not put 250 something x in his fund presentation, okay? So you want to project somewhere between 2 and 10x, and you probably will have different scenarios. You want to talk about the market a little bit. You want to share what the economics of the fund are, the terms of the fund, and then you're going to need a legal disclaimer. That's what you need in your deck. And then you can have some optional slides as well: strategy, operations, competition, any partners you have, any research, etc. But so these decks, especially for new managers, aren't very long. All right, let's move on to pitching, and I'm only one left. There's only 5 recommendations. So once you have all this stuff ready, your thesis, your track record, and your materials, you're going to want to pitch hundreds of limited partners. Okay, so I'm guessing right now in developed nations, it's 200 to 400 limited partners that you're going to need to pitch. Mike, what's your views on that? Is that about right?
Yeah, in developed nations, if you're super well targeted, it's going to be 100 to 200, and in not developed nations, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, but most of you are not going to be super well targeted, so it's going to be 200 to 400, and developing nations are going to be 400 plus, right? We've seen 600 or more. All right, so everybody here, if you're going to be going into venture capital, you need to be building your network. The place that measures your network is called LinkedIn. So, and you can do stuff on LinkedIn, like share stuff, comment on other people's popular posts, share other people's for some reason, the LinkedIn algorithm is always changing. Before, if you shared someone's stuff, it wasn't very good. I've been sharing people's stuff and getting hundreds of thousands of impressions on shares. So that's new on LinkedIn. So you can use LinkedIn to build your network in the stage and sector of your thesis right now. And really, if you don't have 5,000 to 10,000 connections on LinkedIn, it's going to be hard for you to start a fund, because that's just a measure of your network reach. And if you don't have that network reach, you're not going to find deals. You're not going to find people to help the deals that you get in. You're not going to find limited partners, etc. So you got to build that network. Next, as we discussed earlier, you want to initially pitch people that you know. We call these confidants. And if 1 in 5 of the confidants that you pitch don't say yes, then your thesis isn't good and you have to go back to the drawing board. Okay? Until 2 or 3 out of 5 of the confidants that you pitch just with your thesis say yes, then there's you still have work to do on your thesis. Okay? So keep that in mind. 2 or 3 out of 5 that you just say your thesis to need to say yes. Okay. Once that's, Mike, go.
The most likely people to come into especially these first closes are going to be people that you know or second degree connection. It's not going to be some random person that you don't know well at all that's going to go in. That's why it's so important for you to make sure that you have a close network of people around you that may participate in this.
All right, everybody, we only have like 8 questions. If you have a question, pop it into the Q&A. Then vote with the thumbs up on the questions that you want answered. So review the questions first, add your question last, and vote on other questions that you see, please. Okay. So once you have 2 or 3 out of 5 of your confidants saying yes, you're going to go into LinkedIn, you're going to figure out who knows lots of rich people, and then you're going to go pitch those people first. Those are called connectors. And you're not going to pitch them to invest in your fund, okay? You're going to tell them that you're thinking to work on a venture capital firm, and you love to see if they know anyone who would be a good limited partner, okay? So you use connectors to get introductions to limited partners, okay? Once you start meeting a few limited partners, and there's a whole guideline on how to pitch to avoid general solicitation, which is there at the bottom. So again, Mike, if you want to put in the chat the general solicitation advice because there's been a lot of activity in the chat, you need to if you mess up on general solicitation, depending on the country, the consequences are serious. In Europe, you can go to jail. In the US, you can be banned from any fundraising for up to a decade. That means you bake sales at your school. You can do no fundraising at all for a decade, okay? So don't mess up general solicitation. Everybody messes it up all the time. And sometimes I'll say something on LinkedIn. I mean, I've had friends take stuff down that, would have put them in hot water. So you got to be super careful about that. And but once you start pitching LPs that you're met with the connectors and following the guidelines on general solicitation, you're going to get a sense of different archetypes, different types of LPs. It could be former tech executives or exited entrepreneurs or small family offices or corporations, but that's unlikely. It's most likely going to be like people that are more like an angel and less like an LP for your first fund. And they're going to be interested. And then that's going to form an archetype. So you're going to say, oh, exited entrepreneurs in this sector love what I'm doing. That's one of my archetypes. And you're going to have, let's say, 5 or more archetypes that are interested in what your offer is. And then you're just going to create lists of LPs in those archetypes. And then you should be pitching about 20 LPs a week. Again, following general solicitation guidelines. Okay. And once you get someone interested, once they're, remember, you don't at this point, you're doing all this stuff, but you don't have legal entities, which we talked about earlier. You're not working with Carta, you're not working with a law firm, and those guys will sell you like a bartender to drunken sailors on shore leave. Come on in, free everything. Come. Like, okay, guys, calm your horses. And I know you have a sales quota to meet. I will tell you that law firms and back office providers are the most unethical group of people in this industry today. And it's shameful what they do. They get you to sign up for their stuff long before you're ready. And let me help you with what ready is. It's shameful. When you have 10% of your target fund size, which really should not be above $15 million, hard circle. That means people have signed a letter of intent. We have a template called a pact. People have signed a pact for 10% of your fund. Only then should you even entertain working with a law firm or working with a back office provider. If they have conned you to do so beforehand, shame on them, number one. And number two, you can ask a question in the Q&A and we can give you some advice, but it's a mistake. And I'll tell you why. As you get more and more limited partners interested in your fund, you will find that some limited partners have requirements, and they'll say, look, I want to give you $1 million, but you have to be in Delaware or wherever. And those requirements may cause you to have to switch everything that you just paid this lawyer for, everything that you just paid this back office provider to do. And then you've thrown money down the table. Mike, how much money have we seen thrown down? Millions, right?
Yeah,
Millions.
yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars per firm type of stuff where people made these critical errors and mistakes and they didn't know any better, right? And they come into the program and now we're like, oh, we got to fix it. It's just really hard.
Yeah,
So just say no, right? If a aggressive salesperson comes from like a back office provider, say no. If a law firm, don't work with the law firm, don't engage, don't sign anything with law firms until you basically have 10% or more of signed letters of intent. And I put this in the chat. It's called a pact. This is a template that you can use to get LPs that have said, yes, I'm in, to go and get them hard circled.
It's shameful. And we've seen as little tens of thousands at the minimum that's been wasted and hundreds of thousands at the maximum, but it's usually around $100,000 thrown away of your money by making this mistake because of these shameful practices in the industry today. Okay, and then once you got that 10%, you run a fast process, okay? At that point, you're like, got the 10, preferably you'll want 10% hard and 10% soft. So 10 and 10. That's the minimum to start a closing process. 10 and 10. You're going to get your vendors. You're going to engage with your limited partners. You're going to get all the closing materials from your vendors. You're going to read them all. These can be very hard to read. It could take you just a couple weeks to read the materials. Once you read the materials, you might share them with the LPs, your top LPs for any questions, which point you'll set up the entities, you'll collect the signatures, you'll initiate the first capital call. Closing can be brutal. I say 1 month. Actually, that's not really true. It's more like 2 months to run it realistically. So let me see if I want to change this. I want to just right here in real time. I mean, you can do it in a month, but no one really gets it done in a month because it's super hard, right? And the reason it's super hard is these things are complicated. right? A fund is not a single entity. It's three entities. It's a manco, a GP, and a fund. You can't just walk into a bank and get a bank account, right? You have to do what's called a VCPE application. And they do extensive KYC and AML on you, on your limited partners, etc. I've seen bank forms to set up a VC account that are dozens of pages, right? With like lots of stuff per page. Sometimes you have to fill the same things out for a single bank 4 and 5 times, right? You'll need an AML policy just to get a bank account, an AML director just to get a bank account. So again, this is not like, oh, okay, I got 10 and 10. Tomorrow we're closed. It's like I got 10% hard circled, I got 10% soft circled, and now I've got a 2-month process to close. And again, it's just because it's more complicated. So how can we help? We're the leading venture capital accelerator at VC Lab. The program is 100% free. We, at this point, all of the best managers in the world are going through VC Lab. If you sort AngelList by the top returning syndicates, etc., they've all deplatformed on AngelList and are moving on to VC Lab. All the top ones, all the top executives, all the top angels, all the famous people, #1 social media influencer, athletes, blah, blah, blah. They're all launching their funds with us, and it's free.